Alright, welcome everyone to my first video about the AtragMX, and in this video I'll concentrate on how to add a new gun. I'll put a few links to the description of the video, mainly to the ACE mod wiki, which really, at least this one here, is pretty compact and useful. If you follow these steps you'll get the same results, pretty much. So yeah, you might want to check them out. And also we'll be using the JBM ballistics calculations to get the ballistic coefficient. Alright, now let's get to the armor. So here I have the RHS M2010 marksman rifle, which is I think pretty popular, at least in our community it is. But however, it's not available in AtragMX, so if you go to guns, it doesn't exist here as default. I think I have made it once already. Yeah, okay, I have. But I'll do it again, so you'll see how it works. So when you open the AtragMX, it probably looks like this. First, you want to go to gun list and add a new gun. Then you name it. The name doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be the caliber as it's as default. So I'll just call this M2010.300 WinMag. That'll distinguish it well enough. And hit OK. It will appear at the bottom here. So now I'll open the gun, and here we have some data about the gun, but these are all default values. You can't really trust these. So what we want to know, you might want to grab a pen now and jot down all these, except muzzle velocity, because for that you need much more values. And by jotting these down, I mean just the headers, so bore, bullet weight, etc. The zero range is always default as long as you haven't touched it in the ACE settings, which is here. I'm pretty sure it refers to this one anyway. ACE scopes does exist. So yeah, this is the default zero distance, and I think as long as you don't touch these values, the ATRAG works as it works for me. One important thing before you start adding the data is that you must go to the atmosphere and set the default. That will basically make sure that the muzzle velocity doesn't fuck up later on. So how do you find all these values? You open your Rangecard. I have binaries to Control Shift Alt Home, but you can do really whatever you want with that. You can also, it's the same as all the other gadgets, so you need to have it inside your vest or uniform, and then you can just open the Rangecard. And yeah, that's about it. I think the copy Rangecard means that you can basically copy the Rangecard from another person, so you can use it for spotting. So when you open the Rangecard, you'll get really all the values you need. So let's start from up here. Here we have the bullet diameter in inches, 0.308. By the way, the values in the Rangecard, well, at least as long as you don't open the copy one, are always correct. So these values are actually calculated by ARMA itself, and every default Rangecard is unique. And by default I mean when you don't touch the copy Rangecards. I haven't been using the copy cards myself. But yeah, when you open your Rangecard, these values will be calculated from your settings basically. So bullet weight can be found here, 220 grains. Remember, these are grains, not grams. I mean, it's logical. It would be pretty darn heavy if they were grams. Here we have the ammo type, which you also might want to jot down, although you don't really need it, because you can also, basically you will need this to find out the C1 coefficient. Here we have the twist, rifle twist. It is 10 inches. That's what you want to type down. And down here we will have the bore height. Now bore height is something that will depend on the scope you're using. So different scopes have different bore heights. It's basically the vertical distance between the barrel and the scope, I'm pretty sure. I'm not quite sure which part of the scope, but it doesn't really matter. And of course you also need the muzzle velocities, which will take a bit longer to copy. Alright, that's it. You don't need to care about the wind or lead corrections at all. They are completely irrelevant when adding a new gun. So now first you can see we have here the metric and imperial units, or imperial all in English. Well, it's basically the inches and feet anyway. Well, here we have the centimeters and meters. And then we have the dual, which has, I think it had yards. Actually no, it had meters and feet. Yeah, it's basically the same as the imperial, but it has just meters for the range or something like that. But I think imperial is really the practical one to use here, since most of the values in the Rangecard are given in imperial values. So bore height in inches for this scope, Mark 4 M5 I believe it's called, is 2.7. Also notice to use point here, comma doesn't work. A bullet weigh 220 grains. Bullet diameter is the default. C1 coefficient, we'll get to that later. Rifle twist, you don't have to worry about these because that's my push talk key. Rifle twist 10 inches, and then we can hit done. Go back to meters. Zero range is 100 meters as the default. Next up, you will select the muzzle velocity here and add the values according to the ones you just copied. -15, 62, 0, so you have to use the average for -5 and 5. So in this case it would probably be 863. 10 degrees, 864, 15 degrees, 866, 25 degrees, 868, 30 degrees, 870, and 35, 872, and hit done. Now your gun data has been set except C1 coefficient, which is really an important part. Now there are a couple of ways to figure the coefficient out, one of which is to go to the arsenal, ACE arsenal that is, find your gun, primary magazine, and you can see it right here. So the G7 coefficient is 0.31. ICAO, I believe ICAO was related to the default temperature, but the default temperature, etc., like default conditions, temperature, air pressure, humidity, are alright already. so you don't really have to worry about the ICAO. However, the ATRAG needs the C1 coefficient, and this one is G7. So for that, we will use the JPM ballistics site, link to which is somewhere here. Yeah, right here. And according to this info here, the G1 is close enough to C1. So right here, I'm gonna set the 0.31, which I just got from the arsenal. And for the caliber, it would be 0.308. Bullet weight in grains. Just bear in mind that the units are correct. Bullet weight in grains is 220. And the muzzle velocity, assume it would be the one at 15 degrees, since we are using the ICAO, is 866. Hit the calculate. And here we have your ballistic coefficient, 0.622. Now you can just copy it. I use Ctrl C, or you can just right click and copy. Go back to your game, hit home to open it, and then gun. Let's replace it. Hit done. And the important part, go back to gun list and save gun. It doesn't do anything else than just this, but it will save the gun. Now we can try it out. We have pretty strong wind. Okay. So seems like it will be actual sniping practice. Before I'll do that, I will inform you that there is the drag coefficient table, which is basically I don't really know about ballistics that much that I would know too much about this, but basically it means that the ballistic coefficient will decrease, I believe, the further the target is, which will basically affect the trajectory. But the error of not doing this isn't very great, so you can just let's not do it now, because I'm not too good with myself either. If you use vanilla ammo, like let's just select this one here, and they will have them set already, so you don't have to worry about these. You can set ballistics coefficient by using the tuning drop, but to be honest, I have managed to do it a couple of times, but the coefficient has barely changed for me, so I have just come to the conclusion that it's not really worth the trouble. However, if you want to do it, it is explained here. I believe it's explained. Yeah, it's explained here. Also, it is possible to, if you know about coding, you can actually apparently set presets with the framework. I don't know too much about it. I have been making a bit of configs and very simple mods, but this is too much for me. I was trying to find out these values, but I couldn't manage to do it. If you are up for the task, I'll leave this to description too. All these values can be found somewhere in the configs, but yeah, that's mostly probably the weapon configs and the ammo configs. But there are some like scope click units, max elevation, well, basically many stuff, or much stuff which isn't used when you do this. So I don't know too much about that. Was there anything else related to this? That's pretty much it for the gun part. So now you know how to set a gun. Congrats.